Can you tell us a bit about your other collaborations with Ben Aaronovitch? And you did a bit with Paul Cornell too. Did some plotting with him, is that right?
Oh, Paul came to visit Sydney, and so I acted as his native guide a little bit, and we weren't zooming around on the trains. So, and of course, what did we talk about? We talked about Doctor Who, and he had Human Nature on the boil. And so we discussed that book a lot. I know I'm not sure now if and what ideas of mine went into that book. I know he had a huge pile of his ideas that didn't go into it. So, again, there's that refining process. You can't put in every idea. They're not all as brilliant as you may think they are, or they just don't fit or whatever. But gee, it was fun. I mean, it was Paul Cornell. Oh my God. And I was talking to him about his book. It was completely brilliant. Whereas poor old Ben was a slightly different situation where that So Vile a Sin, the novel, was just not coming out, and it just wasn't happening. And from the files that I received, something had gone wrong on that computer. But I look back and I wonder, Transit got a mixed reception, although I do think it is one of the most brilliant Doctor Who books in the history of man. The Also people got an enormously great, brilliant reception, which it completely deserved. So can you imagine the whiplash going from controversial book to greatest book ever? How do you do your third book? I think it would be very confronting. I think you'd be second guessing yourself a lot. I haven't really talked this out with Ben, but I can imagine myself in that situation thinking, my God, I don't think I dare put pen to paper. This is scary as hell. Anyway, the practical upshot all was I was so desperate to read that book, So Vile a Sin, that I said I will write it if I have to in order to read it. And I wrote it in an insane... I didn't write it. What did I write? I wrote a big chunk. I wrote most of it from his notes. We had most of the book was written out in notes, and we had big chunks of it had been written. And then I just sat there and typed without pausing for breath for 6 weeks, I think. And I remember falling asleep at the keyboard once, and I thought, I will never write this hard again. I think I wrote 4,000 words, and then I sort of realized that I was starting to nod off and thought, oh, Gray, you have to stop now. It was an absolutely, but it was my honor. I mean, oh my God, Ben Aaronovitch, author of Remembrance of the Daleks and so many other brilliant things. I couldn't believe how privileged really I was to be able to pick up a book that for whatever reason wasn't occurring. No, I think it was Poor Devil. It was published late, wasn't it? It was actually published out of its sequence in the novels because it really got into a tangle. So, it was my pleasure to finish it. I mucked it up, though. It was so funny. Rebecca Levine, the editor, had to write, we were both working like crazy, and she had to email me and say, I've got you drafted the whole book. Yes. And she said, could you go back and put in character descriptions? And so I went back and I realized I had not described a single person that I was writing about. I would just say what they're doing and then what they're saying. And then so I had to go back and make up all that. So I don't know what they look like. But of course, if the poor reader comes in, they're going to think, which one of them is which? I don't know what's happening. Does that give you some idea? It was chaos. It was absolutely, and again, it's John's fault because I had a wobble. I thought, I can't do this. I mean, A, Ben Aaronovitch, and B, 6 weeks, and C, I think 80,000 words, or so. That can't have been right. It must have been less than that. But, a lot of words. And John said, no, you have to write it. You have to write it. You have to write it. And I said, yeah, you're right. I do have to write it. So I hope people enjoyed it because, oh my goodness.